Hello, everyone. I am delighted today to get time with a girlfriend of mine, Therese Kerr. We're going to be talking about some not so delightful, some heart-wrenching topics. I've known Therese for many decades now. Both of us have put a lot of time and energy into pursuing things that have meaning to us and to humanity across the board. We both love to use whatever platforms we have to work on things for social justice. And Therese and I, many years ago, we did a cookbook. We were both pursuing helping Australians and families across the world with different things. So she's one of the most passionate and inspiring women I know. And it's a real honour, Therese, to have a moment now to chat about what you're doing, the film that you're getting behind. So tell us about it.
Oh, thank you, sweetheart, and ditto right back at you. You're one of the most inspiring. I did an interview the other day and I said you and Simon are just beautiful soul, such soulful, beautiful people. And Johnny and I absolutely love you and love everything that you stand for. So thank you. Thank you for reaching out to me and, wanting to share what I'm involved in. And I guess we just get straight to it, Jen, and I'll share, what's happening or what's happened to some friends of ours and the documentary that we are wanting to make through Angel Studios. We now need votes, the public to vote to be able to have that documentary made. We've passed the first step of the Angel Studios process, which only about 5% of people do, to actually make a documentary through them, and we've passed that. Now it's up to the people to vote to determine whether or not they want this documentary made. So I want to share with your listeners what this documentary is about. I'll give you a brief history of the people that are involved in this documentary, and then I'll tell you why we need to share it, and this has to be made to be able to transform an industry that I believe is broken. Well, we know is broken. So you're fine for me to continue, Jen, and just keep talking.
Maybe start with the name of the film, Therese, and then we can build from there.
Yep. So it is Shaken Baby Syndrome, the myth and the misery. So around 9 years ago or 10 years ago, friends of mine met Naomi and Zane home, and then they tried, after about a year, they wanted to have children. So they've tried for 9 years to have babies, and unfortunately they were unable to have children. And they did 4 rounds of IVF, and her eggs weren't great. So one of the nurses, and this just gives you an indication of how special this couple is, because one of the nurses there ended up donating egg for them to be able to have a baby. Anyway, they fell pregnant with beautiful baby twins, and Naomi had a pretty horrendous pregnancy. She spent the last 3-4 months in hospital. She discovered they were having twins, and she ended up delivering early, about a month early. The twins were born, and Naomi's the first person to say, as soon as she had the twins, she noticed that Pax, one of her little babies, just didn't look right. And she kept mentioning to the doctor, there's something not right. There's something not right with him. He looks different. Can you please test? Can you please make sure? This is before she even left hospital. And they just, disregarded her concerns. And I'm a big believer in mother's intuition. Mothers know, but so often that intuition is totally discarded and discredited. So anyway, what happened is, finally, after a month, the boys and Naomi were let home, and Naomi hadn't been outside for 4 months because she'd been in hospital the whole time. She, her mother, and her grandmother went out just to do a little bit of shopping. During that time, Pax had a medical episode. Zane was at home with the twins. Zane phoned the emergency, as any responsible parent does when a child has a medical episode. He phoned Naomi. Naomi got there before the ambulance did. she was holding Pax and noticed he was looking, he just hadn't been breathing and had all sorts of challenges. The ambulance officer arrived. He said he's having a seizure. Naomi said that was happening in the hospital. He was doing exactly that in the hospital, and nobody would listen to me. To cut a long story short, they went to the hospital in the ambulance, and 2 days after admitting Pax to hospital, they were then charged with shaken baby syndrome. Now, Jen, I didn't know anything. I've known Naomi and Zane for years, basically over, probably 12 years. And I knew nothing about shaken baby syndrome until this happened to them. They were absolutely gobsmacked in regard to them thinking that they had hurt their baby when they just longed to start a little family of their own. Now, unfortunately, they had then spent over 3 years fighting the charges that were laid against Zane. They ended up charging Zane for shaken baby syndrome. The moment that they charged Zane officially, they put him in jail, and then they ended up taking the children. Naomi fought for Zane to be released. The day that Zane got home, the police and docs came in, and they took the children at 9 p.m. at night from them, and Naomi and Zane were left not knowing where they had gone. Naomi is a warrior. She's a warrior woman like yourself, Jen, and, she wasn't going to let that happen. And they had fought long and hard to have their children. And unfortunately, they just came in and took them. And then they fought. They got the children back. But then they were on a journey for over 3 years where they had to fight for Zane's freedom. During that time, Zane was not allowed to live with Naomi. Naomi could only have the twins if she lived with her mother. Zane was limited in the amount of time he could see the twins, and they fought with everything they had. Thankfully, they are a middle-class family. They had their own home, but they had to sell it to fight, for Zane's freedom, and they lost everything. And then 1 week before the trial was due, the prosecution dropped the case. No explanation, no apology, no monetary compensation, even though they lost everything. And what Naomi and Zane discovered was that Pax had what they call CVST, which is a blood clotting thrombosis condition as such in his little body. And there are now over 40 known causes of shaken baby syndrome. And yet, if you present at a hospital with what is called the triad of injuries, and because we have a public profile as a family, I really research everything before I get involved to the nth degree. Now, shaken baby syndrome is based on a myth or a hypothesis of Dr. Norman Guthkelch of 1971. And even in our short little video that we've put together, which will be turned into a big documentary, he is on there saying it was never meant to be the science of shaken baby syndrome. He never meant or intended it to be that, yet the medical industry has adopted it as the science, and they are refusing the rigorous review of that science that is needed. And scientists all over the world, Dr. Chris Brooks, Dr. Wayne Squire, scientists all over the world, biomechanical engineers are saying the new science shows, not the hypothesis which has been regarded as the science, but the new science shows that biomechanically you cannot shake a baby to have what is called the triad of injuries without first causing neck damage. And in shaken baby syndrome, in the cases that Michael Knott and other lawyers in America have done, there hasn't been a case where the neck is damaged, and that's what the science needs, a rigorous review. And that's what we're really wanting to create this documentary and getting people to vote so that they can, one, understand this even exists, two, that we can prevent this from happening to other families. 3, that we can transform a very broken industry. 4, we can return children to their homes. And basically, we can review the science. That's what we need to do.
It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, I first wrote about shaken baby syndrome with well-adjusted babies, in the first and second editions. And to hear that the foundation that has been used to assess those cases hasn't evolved in, that many years.
53 years.
That's nuts.
Yeah, absolutely crazy.
And then these families are pulled apart, ripped apart, and yet it's based on junk science. It's so sad.
Yeah.
So for in their case of Zane and Naomi, their baby, you said had the CBST condition, a genetic condition. Can you, with all the the reading that you've done and the research, are there some other kinds of causes that people listening to this may be able to identify with, or if they want to look into it more? Because what you and I were talking about before we started was that there are other families, since you've started calling to action for this film to be made, there are other families right now in Australia and potentially around the world who've connected with you and saying they can't talk about their situation because they're still in trial, which can take years, which is, when you're not looking at this every day, you kind of turn a blind eye. But to hear that there's still so many families where this is happening right now, can you talk to that?
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, there are over 40 known causes now, and these are scientists, world-renowned neuropathologists, like Dr. Wayne Squire was saying. She used to actually help the prosecutors prosecute families. Now she's working with the defendants to actually free those people and to help prevent this from happening to other people. So in relation to the causes, the meningitis, for example, I can actually send you a screenshot of that so you can put it up on your page, Jen. Even so the triad of injuries, did I explain what that is? So if a baby presents at a hospital with what is known as a triad of injuries, so retinal hemorrhage, bleeding of the brain, and bridging vein injury, you are automatically under suspicion of shaken baby syndrome, and you are treated, honest to God, Jen, you are treated as if you are guilty until proven innocent. And that is standard over the world. We have people reaching out to us from all over the world. The Innocence Project in America is helping families in America. There's people in Europe as such, in particular France, in Japan, in Australia. There's so many families that are going through this, and people would be gobsmacked to know the number of families. And that's what this intent of this video is, to actually bring to the public the awareness create awareness that this is actually happening, because it's so underground, because families who are going through it can't talk about it. And that's the very, very sad thing.
And I loved hearing before we jumped on that, part of the long-term vision is not to just share Zane and Naomi's horrific story and other stories that you would put into that first documentary, but then hopefully to build on that and do exactly that, connect with these families around the world who have been prosecuted in this way, and what were the events that led to that, so that there is more awareness and we can change this, the whole machine that's faulty of how these families are ripped apart.
Yeah, and they're totally destroyed. Most families, when they're charged, do not have the means, financial or otherwise, to even fight the claim as such, or the accusation against them. They are encouraged to take a plea bargain as such, and sadly a lot of men will take a plea bargain just to have the children returned to their homes. And how heartbreaking. In many instances, these babies, due to other medical reasons, and Jen, I know child abuse exists, we all know that, but you can't have a situation where if you present at a hospital with what is known as the triad of injuries, there is no further investigation done. You are just guilty until proven innocent. And that cannot happen. We have people that I know of who are, one family, for example, that I know of, and they're awaiting trial, and she's fallen pregnant again because the trial phase is a long time. She's fallen pregnant again, and they're going to take the baby off her, as soon as she has the baby. I've got other people that I know and I've spoken with that are, unfortunately, their baby died and they had other children and they took the other children. They've been fighting for years to get their other children back. And unfortunately, they're now in jail, charged with murder. And Michael Knott, who was an amazing lawyer in Australia here, Dr. Chris Brooks, Dr. Wayne Squire, many, many, many specialists in their field are speaking out saying it is junk science, and it needs a rigorous review. And that's all we're asking for. And I believe the public awareness that we create from this documentary, that must be made to have a spotlight on it in the public eye, that it will shine the light on this subject enough for an outcry and gut-wrenching. It is gut-wrenching, and people will demand this to be reviewed. And that's our ultimate goal, is to have this reviewed so that we can free innocent people. We can prevent that from happening. We can return babies to their homes, not to be taken in the first place.
Yeah. And it's such an opportunity, isn't it, for people to rally together, and that power of people to, to have voices heard. Gone are the days where Hollywood is the only place that can make films now, with avenues like this. It's a great opportunity for people to support other parents. So what does someone need to do, Therese?
Okay, so I'll send you the link, Jen, and then they need to go to actually vote. So Angel Studios have accepted our first submission. We now need the public to vote that they want this documentary to be made, and they want to know more. And so what I am requesting of your followers, Jan, is that people will actually go and vote. You have to become an Angels Studios Guild member, and there's a small cost in that. You can join for a month, but that small cost will help to get this documentary made. We can't do that without the votes. We're relying on the public to go and vote, because that will determine if Angel Studios then helps us make this documentary.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, I certainly did it after watching, you talking about it online, and then connected with you. It is, it's a minimal amount. It doesn't have to be an ongoing donation.
No.
And, I think this film isn't just about parents. It's about humanity coming together against, a system that just doesn't let people's voices be heard and cases be heard. It's prejudgment, and it's just so horrible to hear of these stories.
And it's ruining families. So we were approached just this week by an American lawyer who is acting on behalf of a man. There are people on death row in America for what a lot of these scientists believe are crimes they did not commit. We were approached by this American lawyer, and he said, she said, that her client, Robert Robertson, is on death row, and he's exhausted all his appeals. They're awaiting his execution, and they ask for our help. The way I can't stand by, Jen, and let an innocent man, somebody who the science is based on a hypothesis, we can't stand by and let him be executed without trying to do something. And that's a call for humanity. That's a call for people to stand up now and vote, even if it's just to get the documentary made, so that then we create the awareness, and then let the scientists who have this new science and saying that this is not fact. The science of shaken baby isn't real. The real science we need to bring forward, and we need to diagnose on the real science in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And, unfortunately, Therese, unless we try and do things to change the system, you know, with everything that I look at with epigenetics, there's more and more genetic vulnerability in our children today that could lead to brain inflammation from, you know, different lifestyle decisions and injections and all of those things, that this might become very well much more commonplace. And so, you know, it's a system that needs to change.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, as I said, it was determined that Pax has CVST. His father has a mutated gene that causes blood clotting. His grandfather has a mutated gene. The doctors didn't discover that. Naomi and Zane had to go through the process of 3 years and then finally discovering that. If they'd known that, one simple blood test by the doctor, one simple blood test would have prevented that from happening. And that's why I'm imploring people, please help us by voting yes to have this documentary made, and then share why you want it made. So it gives you on the actual Angel Studios website that I'll send you the link to, Jen. It gives you a ability to say, why do you want this made? And this is shining light. There's another question, is that does this amplify light? Because Angel Studios is all about amplifying light, making a difference. That's what we're trying to do. And this film shines a light on an industry that is broken, that needs to be reviewed. All we're asking for is rigorous review of the science so that we can stop innocent people being jailed, families being torn apart, and children being taken from their homes.
Yeah, beautiful. All right. Thank you, wonderful lady, for letting us know about this. And yeah, we look forward to more and more people getting behind it. It's such an important you know, process that needs to change and needs more and more people to know about it. So thank you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, sweetheart. And do you know what? If this happens, like, and what Naomi and Zane said, if it happened to them, it can happen to anyone. And that's what even Michael Knott and Dr. Chris Brooks says in the actual short video that they'll watch. You can go to hospital and you can be charged because of your baby presenting with these injuries, when unfortunately there are other causes that they just get overlooked. They don't even look at them. And that's why we need to do something. So thank you, sweetheart. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And thank you, everyone, for, you know, helping us to get this made.
Absolutely. Thanks, Therese.
Thank you, my darling.